Hello, everyone. It's Wednesday night. You know what that means. It's Symbaroum here on Telling Tales, picking up the Throne of Thorns again after a long time away last week. We are now slamming directly and with violence into episode 2 of What's Bred in the Bone. We're delighted to have you here with us. Before I bring everyone on and start doing the normal intro chit-chat nonsense, a number of items for your attention. First, as you may have noticed, this is the second time we're streaming on YouTube and Twitch. So welcome, YouTube people. It's great to have you here, except if you're that arsehole from last week, in which case, I guess I'm kind of ambivalent about whether you're here or not. If you check below the video, there's a whole bunch of links. There's links to our Discord, our social media, our various websites of content, our Patreon, our merch store, all the stuff you'd normally expect for this kind of thing. Check those out if you're interested. We currently run a number of campaigns on a weekly or fortnightly basis. Mondays is alternating between Warhammer Fantasy with Sam and We Deal in Lead with Jack. Wednesdays is, of course, Symbaroum. And Thursdays is currently, it's kind of, I say it's in the air, but it's not really. Tomorrow, Thursday, is going to be the final stream of Wicked Ones for at least a while. It's probably switching to a more recorded format. And I think it's intended to kind of be the rough close of an arc, but Sam has assured me to not tell anyone that he's actually wrapping it up because he doesn't think he can. So, you know, whatever. But it's the last Wicked Ones stream tomorrow. And then it will return in a recorded format. And then next week, Thursdays, we'll pick up with fortnightly Yellow King, which is a new system for us. Very much looking forward to a kind of reality-bending, historical, cosmic horror melange that is the Yellow King. We hope you are too. But yeah, in the meantime, Symbaroum. Oh, and we do one-shots as well. We've done a bunch of one-shots this year. The next one will be on your screens on Sunday, June 9th. We'll be playing Cloud Empress, which was delayed from a little while ago. Okay, now I'm ready. And I also realise that I have probably really bungled the order of characters to come on because someone else is doing the recap, which is traditionally first. So we're actually going to start with Stephen. Because Stephen will be doing the recap for us. Stephen plays former Templar novice turned hacker of things large and small with a big sword, Elindra.
Hi.
Yeah. Hi. How are you, Stephen?
I'm good. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Excellent. As long as someone is. That's my motto. So, recap. Why don't you fill us in? And it's probably going to be a brief one because the answer is nothing of significance, but lots of fun little moments. What happened in the first episode of What's Bred in the
Bone? So like most of the moments I'm going to gloss over because you can just go and watch that if you want to. But the general gist of it is that kind of following from our previous adventures, I think we'd kind of had spent a little bit of time recuperating in Thistlehold before taking jobs as essentially part of the Saber, the Lightbringer's entourage. She's taking a little tour around Ambria, dropping into some towns and exciting people with her sort of holiness, and we're kind of there doing, I guess, crowd control. But, you know, it's paid work and it's kind of getting us out and about. So we learned kind of a few things along the road. One of the ones that was most interesting to me is just that Father Salage, who some will remember from like particularly the tail end of the previous adventure, whose future was left uncertain at that point, apparently survived the wounds that he had and is recuperating in the Hall of 1,000 Tears. But from our point of view, we've just been following the Saber, and we made it to, I do not have the map and cannot remember the town that we ended up.
Ravenna.
Ravenna, like right over in the east.
Right over in the east, yeah.
Where the purpose of the trip was kind of revealed to us as we were kind of outside the city walls, which is that we were going to go and ask after a guy called Father Ombardo, who was a scholar and a friend of DeSabre, and an advisor to Duke Inadar. We were supposed to kind of go in, find him, tell him that we'd arrived at the place, see how things are doing in the town, and just kind of lay the groundwork for DeSabre and the rest of the gang to kind of come on in. Especially given that the Sun Church, as with most other things in Ambrian society at the moment, is in a state of upheaval. So,
absolutely, yeah, very much so.
However, on arrival in Ravenna, we quickly found out that Lombardo is not going to be able to meet us on account of how he's been burned to death.
Yeah, which definitely casts a pall over the enjoyable road trip you've been having so far.
Already we're into classic Symbaroum territory.
Classic Symbaroum. You've got a quest giver. Oh, they're fucking dead. There we go. And on that note, let's bring on our second player for the evening. It's Chris. He plays Steo, former infantryman and town guardsman, turned sort of the in some ways the moral compass of the group, or at least the one most terrified of the forest and all its evils. Chris, how did Steo enjoy his northern Ambria road trip?
Yeah, well, Steo was kind of dragged into this after spending some time in the forest learning bits and pieces and trying to keep a low profile, and was suddenly dragged into what is essentially something akin to a festival tour, taking this kind of living saint around from to place. Obviously, Steo has, what's the opposite of beef? Steo has vegetables with DeSabre the Old. Insofar as that she's been probably one of the few people in the church, other than Anton, that Steo like legitimately believes has a finger on the pulse of things and is acting for good rather than self-interest. So, yeah,
you trying to find a word for the opposite of beef reminds me of the famous tweet where someone quite young and perhaps a little bit socially awkward referred to the process of making IRL mutuals instead of friends.
No. Oh no.
So there we go. There we go. But yeah, that's that sounds like a decent summary from Steer's point of view. Let's go with John next. Let's bring on the player of Sir Arendar, last surviving member of House Dar, duelist, cat owner, sometimes erring on a little bits of the idealistic and naive. John, Arendar, how did Arendar take to this festival tour?
Arendar's been largely enjoying himself, I think. You know, there's pleasant enough company. Nice scenery. No one's trying to kill him. He had a little bit of a talk with the Lightbringer about charity work to the refugee camp near Thistlehold called Blackmore. And Lightbringer was like, I'll do what I can, but also it may be a feature, not a bug. And then had a talk with basically the head of her guard about maybe tracking down the other half of his family tree. And that's about it. Other than that, he's just happy to be here.
As are we all. Okay, let's move on to Sam. Sam plays Ascarai, changeling, ranger, archer, scout, slaughterer of bosses in one shot. Sam, how did Ascarai fight? You know, Ascarai's a guy used to traveling around. How did he take this journey?
I think he enjoyed it a lot. I mean, it's a bit of a change from what we have been going through, kind of more relaxed, relatively easy work. Maybe not compared to what has been done in the past, but compared to what we've been doing recently, it's all pretty easy and straightforward. I think it's nice to see some of the places we've visited and some new places as well. There's probably a little bit of a nagging sensation for Ascarai that like this can't last, this won't last. Like we've done too many, like things are going to catch up to us somehow, and you know this is a break, but it's still been a pleasant break.
Absolutely. And like all pleasant breaks, going back to work is a daunting, intimidating thing, especially if that work is, oh God, now it sounds like we've got to figure out why a guy got burned. So we've all been there. So let's bring on our final player of the night. It's Mike. Mike plays Anton, holy man of the sun god Prios, often put upon individual, pulled between various loyalties, shall we say. Yeah, Mike, Anton's the closest in the group to Disable the Lightbringer without any shadow of a doubt. What's Anton's thinking at the moment?
He's having a great time. He's not in immediate danger. He's not getting killed. He's on a road trip with his best bud, and yeah, I think he's pretty happy. Oh, up until the point that he's found out that someone we need is dead. Yeah. Apart from that, everything's good. Also, when you said that Anton is put upon, that sort of implied that it was just, Anton is just put upon in the story. He's also put upon by you, the GM, and the rest of the party as well.
I don't acknowledge this.
And by me to a degree also, to be completely accurate.
I don't recognize that criticism, and I won't respond to it. So yeah, no, he's doing fine. Look, just because he's this group's sort of what would you call it, Judas goat, it doesn't mean that he's in any way. Oh, I can't even convince myself anymore. Yeah, sure, that's valid. Okay. Let's drag all the cams back into their normal places, and yeah, we'll just launch straight into it, I think. So yeah, you were having this conversation with a guard in Ravenna, and I will conjure up their final words to you, just to put us in the scene. You asked about Father Umbardo and were met with a surprised look, and them saying, "Why do you ask? Have you not heard? He's dead, burned to death." And feel free to go.
Burned
Of
to
course.
death by in an accident by someone else.
No one really knows, but if it was an accident, it's catching. He's not the only one.
So, who else? Is there a pattern? Not other members of the Sun Church, surely.
Yeah, some witch got burned up a few days ago, out beyond the gates. But he's not the first in the Sun Church to go either. The other guard kind of like shoves him a little bit in a kind of "you're being disrespectful" kind of way, and then turns back and says, 2 weeks ago, the first Theurg was murdered. Not burned, though. Not as far as I know.
Sounds like dangerous times.
Well, that's why it doesn't feel entirely festive here, despite it being the day of Inadar's speech.
Understood. Thank you for telling us.
We should head in, grab a pint, get some work done.
Who, I mean, I assume there's someone in the guard investigating.
One of them looks at the other and says, "Well, I'm not entirely sure we should be speaking to you about that. Don't even know who you are. If you're curious about it, I'd imagine it would likely be Captain Ialna. She's who the commander usually goes to for, well, the trickier stuff, the sensitive stuff. As I say, I don't see how it's any of your business. You're not even from Ravenna, from the look of you coming in traveling.
Well, thank you nonetheless.
All right. Just, mind your business.
Of course.
Come on, everyone, let's go mind our business.
Okay. So one of the first things I'd like to do, John, if you could bring up the map of Ravenna, because I've described Ravenna a few times, but I don't think I've ever particularly given you the map for it, right? So I just want to illustrate some things about Ravenna. And obviously it's not like you know all this, although Anton will have a much clearer idea of the layout of it than the rest of you. So John, can we see your cursor on that? Is that possible? Yes, kind of in slow motion. There we go. So you have arrived at the river crossing, and I'm pretty sure you'll be able to point that out, John, because it's the only thing on the river. There we go. You've then walked up into Ravenna, into this area outside Ravenna, the kind of like barbarian amendment to the town, which is all outside the walls and is all like a rather ramshackle assortment of relatively new buildings. There's then the first set of walls around Ravenna, as you can see, and the kind of city in general. And then there is also an inner set, or two inner sets of walls. The inner that wall that you're currently going around now is built around something called the Mound, which is like a raised area of the city, which Anton, from visiting and doing a little reading about it, is the original city or the original town, which is now a place, because you have walked through it when you went to Duke Inadar's palace. It mainly seems to be where the high and mighty have their homes or places of business. Like it has the original Sun Church of the town, although now there is a much larger one out in the general city itself. You saw like what seemed to be like a kind of barbarian clanfolk embassy. The Order Magica are in there, like all that kind of thing. And then all the way at the top right there on the peak of the mound, you have Duke Inadar's palace, which is it's very large and it's quite ostentatious looking, but it's also very clearly a rebuilt military fort from when this place was a military outpost more than it was an actual city. And right now you are outside the gates closest to the river crossing. Just so you know, that's where you are. You don't need to keep me updated precise like this. I just wanted everyone to have like a mental picture of this kind of thing.
And the sabers at the river crossing still, right?
Correct. On this side of the river. But yes, there's a little cluster of buildings by the river crossing. Let's say the Weary Legs are one of those. Okay. So with that in mind, folks, I mean, you've entered the city. I think I'll give a little description I gave last time around what the city is like. There's crowds that are there's a lot of people around, but they do seem slightly unusually quiet and serious. They're preparing various places for the day's festivities. Long tables are being brought out and set up. Pennant strings in yellow, green, and red are being put up between the buildings. Song and dance groups are rehearsing, and scenes or podiums are being built for kind of the evening's plays and speeches. But like I say, it's a slightly somber tone, given that that's what's going on around you. And you evidently have the answer to that now, at least 3 murders in the last couple of weeks. And 2 of them of members of the church, which is not usual. Or maybe it's usual now.
What is it about us and coming to East Ambria? We should probably cut it out. If we're short of a plan for what to do, I'd say we do a very quick bout of sightseeing and then make our way to the northern encampments, go and speak to the clansfolk. I think we'll get a bit of a less politically filtered answer from them.
I'm not sure that it's necessary for us to investigate too much at this point. We just said to Saber that we would find out where Bardo is and anything going on with the Sun Church, and then let her know. Don't want to keep her in the dark too much and be out all day.
I feel like
think.
I was agreeing with Anton. I feel like we already know enough that we probably want to report back. This was only supposed to be a quick initial recce.
I just get the feeling that our job description, if it hasn't changed already, is going to change when this information gets back to our patron.
It's like you've done this before, Theo.
I have, and I'm sick of it. And what I'm getting at is I want to make our trail difficult to follow. Let's not make it look like we found out what's happened and go straight back there.
But we are also here to protect the Lightbringer, and we know that there have been some murders with prominent people in the Sun Church, and, well, I shouldn't need to remind you about Saber's position within the church.
And I think trying to keep our trail too covered seems somewhat pointless, as we are accompanying a Lightbringer.
Yeah.
Well, I've been outvoted. Carry on.
I think we also probably need to use the day to find a safe place to stay tonight for the Saber. So we need to know where she wants to go, and then we need to do a bit of investigation on that front without worrying what's happened to everyone else.
Well, there's been a burning inside and outside the walls, so 6 of one, half dozen of the other, unless she wants to cross the river again.
Yeah, but if we can find an inn with sympathies to the Sun Church, and I don't know, it just feels like we got to be careful.
Is there a case to be made for going to the Sun Church and seeing what they say? I know that they are not going to be the Theogs that Saber sent us to speak to, but they might be able to give us some insights about the sentiment in the city
and
town.
Well, maybe more information about the first Theog being killed.
Well, exactly.
Anton, you've been here before.
Steve, go ahead.
Anton, you've been here before. What's the disposition of the church here? Given we know that just the fact that it is a Sun Church does not necessarily mean it is intrinsically going to be helpful.
It's hard for me to answer that question, Steve, given everything that's happened in the Sun Church since I was last here. And this is a part of the world that's pretty far away from Thistlehold as well. So I wouldn't like to say, but Saber did ask on the goings on in the Sun Church, so I suspect heading in that direction might not be a bad idea. I'm in favour of doing that quickly and then returning to her.
Agreed.
So the idea is to go to the Sun Church, and I presume we mean the main one actually out in town rather than the old one on the mound, and just seeing what's going on. And you are a Theurg, so they'll presumably at least be relatively polite to you, Anton, and then seeing what's next. Is that the idea? Okay. Well, you pop up. I don't need to ask you to pop up the map. I can do it myself. There we go. As you can see from there on the map, Sun Church is kind of about halfway through town. You pass, obviously, like many different places on your way through there. Notably, obviously, you can see a very kind of large oval square there, which you may be shocked to learn is called the Oval Plaza, and it is full of people setting up for fairs. Like it way busier than any other place you've been, including like the space in front of the city gates in the barbarian part of town that you walk through. This is obviously like at least partly kind of like the literal center of town. Like it looks like it normally has a marketplace, which is kind of minimally represented today, just like a ring of sort of like concession stalls around the what is actually the sort of the east part of it, so, to avoid confusion, because they haven't produced the map where up is north. So this may get slightly confusing. The top left of the map is north, right? So it's like on a cant of like what, 45 degrees, so, or reverse 45 degrees, so it would be 300 whatever, you know what I mean. The top left
already
is
hate
north.
this place.
The top left is north. If you think of like the palace is the furthest east and the river crossing is the furthest west, then what I'm saying is the northeast of the Oval Plaza has these concession stalls, and most of the rest of it is like little stages where people are like already performing or practicing performing. There's big long tables where food is already being set out, and some people are sat down and just like taking the opportunity to nab some of it early. It's a very festival feel, albeit not as celebratory as you might expect. And the Sun Church, which is very large, comparable to the one in Thistlehold, is over on the south side of the plaza, as you can see there. There are people going in and out of it as they normally would.
Would you like any accompaniment further?
That would be most welcome.
I don't know if we're all going in or how we want to do this.
Don't think it's bad for our former guards captain to get a bit closer to Prios when the opportunity arises. So, Steer, if you'd like to join us, you're welcome.
Fair enough.
How about Arendar and Askarai? Are you going in with them, or lurking outside, or looking around the plaza yourselves?
I think I think that maybe taking a half-trained wild animal into a holy place might not go down amazingly well. I will stay outside and watch the crowd.
Sure.
I think Askra will stay with Arendar, but might also suggest, like, you know, why don't we visit some of these market stalls, buy something, and see if we can get a bit of gossip out of them with the promise of coin.
Sounds good. Okay. Let's go with the group going into the Sun Temple at first. And as you go into the Sun Temple, as I see this say, there's quite a few people going in and out of it. But Mike, why don't you give me a cunning roll, and you can take a good +3 to this roll, I think. Which will probably help you quite a lot because you roll like shit.
It's not first roll of the campaign, 20.
Nice. Everything seems fine to you. Yeah, you walk into the Sun Temple. It's got an open central area, very similar to every Sun Temple you've been before. They're not exactly prefab, like exactly the same everywhere you go, but they tend to be very similar, especially this style that's kind of like a tall frame with a large sort of bronzish dome on the roof. It's very similar to the one in Thistlehold, indeed. And as you walk in, you can see a number of people around as they normally would be, praying or speaking to the liturgs and the theurgs and the novices, kind of seeking confession or advice or any number of things. there's the whole gamut of kind of possibilities is there. Are you attracting attention in any way, or looking for someone who seems to be free?
Not immediately. I think that Antom's first approach would be to, I guess, do the usual theurg thing of going to an altar and having a moment's prayer and things like that. Doing his usual sort of thing of paying respects, and then maybe looking for a novice or a theurg to speak to, if there's someone available.
Absolutely. Steve and Alindra, are you doing any different, or are you just kind of like lurking behind Anton like two extremely intimidating bodyguards for what looks like with all due respect, a relatively unimportant individual?
I will pray. I would like anything that is like relatively normal for like a person of faith to do. I will do.
Yep, same, except person of lapsed faith.
Sure. So kind of going through the motions, this is
Going
what you
through
do
the
when
motions,
you go to
yeah.
some temple. Yeah, sure. Well, in any case, you stand back up, and after probably, as I say, it's fairly busy. After a couple of minutes, you do see a novice who seems relatively kind of free, and they spot you kind of looking at the same time that you spot them, and she takes a few steps towards you and says, "Father, can I help you?" She gives the sun sign, which we already discussed last week, is like the raised hand part. Yeah, not that. Chris, stop it. Yeah.
Oh, good day. I've just travelled quite a long way from Thistlehold with some companions, and upon arrival in your fair town, we heard from the guards that there's been some unfortunate news that's befallen this church, and I wanted to first of all express my condolences for that news, but also to try to understand a little bit more about what's happened, if I may be so bold as to ask.
Certainly, Father. It's a time of mourning here, as you might imagine. I should ask, can you hear my cat yowling in the background? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. No, it's definitely ruining the mood.
What are you talking?
Yeah.
No, that's Farron standing outside with me. It's fine.
He's concerned that we've split up. He's wondering where everyone's going.
She says the first theurg murdered in her bed, but 2 weeks ago it's no secret she had differences with, well, I shouldn't speak of that, I suppose. She was a bold and confidently spoken woman who had carried a sword with her for much of her career in the church, and, well, regardless, she has passed into the arms of Prios now. And then, well, I suppose technically Father Umbardo was certainly a member of the Curia, although not really of this temple. He acted more as an advisor to the Duke. 6 days ago, dead as well in his own home. Terrible.
Awful news. And it doesn't matter how outspoken someone is, they don't deserve that end.
Of course not. It is fortunate to us that High Priest Leandro was ready to take up the mantle. And we have our chief liturgs here are most competent and ready to support Leandro, but, well, that's not your concern, I'm sure, Father, unless you are taking up a posting here.
I do not think that is Prios's plan for me at this moment, but it is certainly quite a beautiful church that you have here. and I do wish better times for you soon.
I do. I thank you. And if you do have any other matters you wish to speak to the temple about, if two individuals who may help you more than I could, they're stood over there, the two chief liturgs that we have, Sondro and Torin. She gestures over. Liturgs are kind of like they are members of the Curia, but they're like, I'm trying to remember what the term is in like more modern Christian stuff. Like they're the primary, like I think they're like the administrators. Does that make sense? So it's almost like a like the ones who manage. They're the office managers of the Sun Temple. You know what I mean? Like they're the ones who do the doing.
They're less front of house.
Yeah. And it's maybe seen as a slightly less holy position than someone who primarily acts as a theurg or a, they're not quite civilian, but they're kind of like, they engage a lot with that side of things. So, anyway, they are stood over there, and a couple of things immediately stand out about them. They are stood there, kind of like sharing a common kind of couple of words with each other. One of them is an older man with quite a rambling white beard and very thinning shoulder length white hair. You're almost certain that will be Sondro, because the other individual, you're equally certain. I'm sorry, I might actually have to deal with this, because this probably isn't going to stop. But I also don't know quite how to deal with it. Hold on 1 second. What are you doing?
Farron.
Come on. Come on. He is incorrigible, so this unfortunately is a necessity. I shouldn't apologize, being as I'm fairly sure that at least 90% of the reason anyone watches this channel is for the occasional shot of him. The other individual stands out to you because, as his name might indicate, he is definitely clan folk in origin, which is quite a rarity in the Curia, if not, in fact, I doubt you've even seen it before. Certainly for someone, there will be the occasional clanfolk novice, but they usually don't proceed much beyond that rank because of innate Ambrian prejudices, not least of which the prejudices of the Church of Prios. But this individual, Torun, is a tall man with long dark hair. The Vajvod peoples of the East, kind of like several of the clanfolk, have a very distinctive look. The Vajvod are one of them. You can kind of immediately tell by like his features and like his build and his hair that he's a member of the Vajvod. And you can also tell because, as well as his kind of robes of Prios and all the usual colors and decorations that might indicate, he also has several long streaks of blue and purple down one side of his hair, which the Vajvod kind of bleach and dye in, and are very, very like recognizable for that. Yeah, it's just quite unusual. Stop grinning, John. Okay. This isn't taking away from the tenor of the story at all.
Well, I will express my thanks to Priest, and I'll just turn around to Dio and Elindra and just raise my eyebrows as if to say, "Have you got anything that you want to ask?"
Only whether or not we think, given the person that we're accompanying, whether it's worth bringing that to the attention of Leandro, or perhaps better to take that information back first and see how it's received.
I think that's my feeling, was that we should be careful with that information.
Okay. then
You're going to go and talk to the money men, Anton.
If we have further questions at this moment, or whether we return later if we want to investigate further. Feel like we would potentially draw attention to ourselves, unwanted attention to ourselves, if we start poking around too much at this stage. A city that we're not familiar with, where nobody really knows us.
I think maybe we have enough to take back to our employer. See what they say.
Come on, then. Let's go and see what trouble Arendar's got himself into.
Who among Anton, Steo, and Alindra has the worst discreet? You might be surprised. I think it's everyone's dump stat. I think we agreed on the last right? 9? 10? Okay. Steo,
yeah, that's yours? A 5.
Okay, can you roll it, please? Okay. Noted. All right. Outside, let's catch up with Arendar and Askrai, who've gone over to the market stalls. As I say, it's less like, it doesn't seem like a normal market day, as you might imagine. It's mostly people selling things that festival goers would want. Those things are food and regular drink and alcoholic drink. And also, like, several stalls are selling kind of like sort of souvenir type curios, such as like small, like, carved wooden figurines of like a young boy wearing armor, and like some like stitched together flags of the heraldry of New Berator. I think we already put two and two together, that the boy in armor who you saw a statue of is probably Duke Inadar, right? Or at least Anton definitely will know this. It's up to you whether you're kind of more aware of the likelihood of that, or of Duke Inadar in any way other than what Anton has told you of it.
Oh yeah, sorry, probably doesn't know, but it's not too worried either.
Sure. Does anyone need a refresher on that? Because I probably glossed over it a little bit, and I'm talking about it as if you've all read the like stuff on Ravenna that I have read. But
if it's I would imagine it's reasonably common knowledge amongst Andalians, like who the Dukes are and kind of what their story is.
Yeah,
so
it is. Yeah, Duke Inadar he's a prominent member of House Kohinoor. He's the Queen's nephew. His father, who was the Queen's twin brother, died in the mission to rescue her from the Dark Lords, and he is when he took his primacy, because he was too young. He is literally as old as Ambria. Like, he was born shortly before the founding of the Ambrian nation, or shortly after, around that time. So he spent most of his life as a duke, as like a child, and has only relatively recently come into his primacy and taken over control of Ravenna and New Berator, the duchy of which it is the capital. There's your little history.
I'm going to, as long as they're not too expensive, I'm going to buy one of the little wooden figurines, because I think Aaron would be quite taken with them. And we'll maybe try and start up a general chat. Like, does anyone have any idea what the speech is going to be? Like, what do people generally think of the Duke? Are we happy that the Duke is throwing a party, kind of thing?
It's going to be a rough old speech for the Duke to give, and no mistake. All these murders, burnings too. Rotten business. You don't feel safe. Maybe you're safe if you're not in robes, if you catch my drift.
No, that does make sense.
All this and the Templars, they're all doing it to each other, aren't they? Trying to come out on top. not very worthy of Prios, if you ask me. But don't tell anyone I said that.
No, I agree, but I will keep your word to myself. Is this a regular thing of the Duke giving speeches? Like, is it a yearly thing?
Oh, aye, every year. Today's the founding of the duchy.
Huh.
And let me tell you, he knows how to rile up a crowd. Does the Duke? He's got a good speaking voice. Good lad.
Well thought of then.
Reminds me of my son.
Oh.
Do you know where does he give his speech?
Right here in the Oval Plaza. That's the platform they're building up there.
All right, that's exciting. We've arrived at the right time then.
It'll probably be a lot later though, so you might want to have a sit down in the meantime.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much.
Oh, you're all right. And enjoy the little carving.
Thank you. I will.
That's the most Monty Python peasant voice I've ever used in an episode of Symbaroum.
All right. Interesting. I guess we should try and listen to the speech one way or another, but it sounds like we got time to get back to the saber before that.
I think so.
Yeah, you're still fairly you're very early morning still. It's like, around 9 or something.
I mean, they're still building the platform, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we've got at least until they finish that.
Like, Ambria, I'm not saying all speeches in Ambria happen at a set time, but it would be very common for a speech to happen like shortly before dusk, because people have finished their work for the day, so they can go to it. It's not too hot because it is the peak of summer here. It's not too hot in a place out in the open. That you'd expect it to be around that time normally.
It's acceptable drinking time.
Also this, correct, yes.
Speaking of, I think we should go get an ale just to make Steve jealous.
There is ale being sold by the sort of concession stand things. I'm trying to look for a named tavern off the Oval Plaza, and I don't think there is one. So we'll say that there don't seem to be any immediately obvious to you, but there's plenty of drink being sold at these stands, kind of barrels being tapped and so forth.
I don't think we should move too far from the plaza, but I'll buy Ascarai a drink.
Ah, very kind of you. Never been bought a drink by a noble before.
It's exactly what you'd expect from festival beer. Some things never change.
Okay. While we're getting it, can Ascarai just generally have a listen out? Presumably there are people around kind of milling about, maybe already drinking. What is the tone of conversation? Is it about the murders? Is it about just life to, daily life?
Yeah. Give me a vigilant roll. And like you say, people are being a bit drunk and there's lots of people around, so take a +1 to it.
That is an 8, so a pass.
Okay. Yeah, people are talking about the murders a lot. They don't seem to be particularly talking about this. Now I'm trying to remember what I told you about the third murder, so I don't give you extra. But you know what? They will be talking about it in that terms. So they don't seem to be that concerned with the witch that got burned, which you may or may not expect, given that most of them are Ambrian. But the two members of the Curia, Father Ombardo and the first Theurg, whose name was Armanda, they're talking about them a lot. And the tenor seems to be very similar to the carving seller staked out, in that definitely rumor seems to be having more than anything else that it's kind of like inter-church business, and that kind of there's been a lot of upset with the church recently,
Like Templar.
like the
Templar stuff.
Templars, and maybe this is part of it. There's kind of trouble in the church, and this could be like a real sign that this kind of stuff is happening.
Okay. I guess. Go ahead.
There, you do hear at least a couple of other people saying that they blamed Clan Carahar for it, because one of them mentions that it could be someone from Clan Carahar because Armando was known for having participated in that cleansing.
Do we know the reference to the cleansing?
I mean, you know what it usually means when a member of the Sun Church uses the word cleansing with regard to clan folk and heretics. It's calmed down a lot now because of the necessity of maintaining relations with the High Chieftain. But certainly in the earlier and mid years of Ambria, there was an awful lot of the Sun Church, the Templars, nobles as well, others who wanted to get paid for it, going out into, I mean, the entire of Ambria was taken by force, but going out into clan territory and, cleansing it. You'll be very familiar with it, as it won't really have affected you're from Clan Gadinja, right, originally, or that was where you were raised. That's kind of too far north for this kind of thing to have happened there, but clans like the Odavs, the Karahar, the Vajvod, the Zarek will certainly have experienced it. And from reputation alone, Karahar particularly, because unlike the other three clans, the Karahar did, how to put this in a politic way, they provoked more of it by fighting back.
Okay.
And that is not me making light of a very grim subject, merely applying some unfortunate historical realpolitik to it.
Well, good information to have. I guess unless, Aaron, there's anything else you want to, we'd probably head back towards the church direction.
I can't think of anything here, but it may be interesting to find out what clan that witch belonged to.
True.
I doubt we'll find that out in this part of town, though.
No, they don't seem too worried about it here. But maybe outside the walls. Okay.
Okay. I think, within this is a comparable amount of time, you can see the others emerge from the Sun Temple and look around and see you there. Arindar and Ascarai, can you give me, whoever of you is worse at discreet, can you give me a discreet roll, but probably at a +3, I think. I don't think you were particularly, obtrusive.
Mine's a 9.
I have good discreet. I think it's 13. Yeah.
So roll at a +3, please.
That's
Joe.
a fail. It's a 17 with a target of 12.
Okay. That's absolutely fine. So you meet back up. Go ahead.
How'd it go?
We didn't find out too much information, I suppose. I think it was 2 weeks ago the first father died. She was quite outspoken. Apparently carried a sword for her career all the time during her career in the church. And then Father Umbardo was sort of more involved at the kind of duchy side of things, working as an advisor, I think. Was that the phrase used?
Yeah, and that tallies with your experience of Umbardo as well. And when you met him, he seemed to be ignored by the priests, but very highly valued by Duke Inadar.
Yeah. And we found we have a couple of contacts that we can go to for more information at the church, should we need. Yeah, how about yourselves?
Well, we found that the Duke is largely well thought of, which is, I suppose, good. The general sentiment seems to be that the whole thing's a bit of inter-church politics.
So the witch burning is part of that, or
no
an
one really,
aside?
no one really seemed to talk too much about the witch, this side of the walls, anyway. But it was mentioned that the first Theog had a part in some unpleasant history with the Karahar.
Interesting. That wasn't mentioned, but I suppose it wasn't mentioned to us, but I suppose that's not a huge surprise.
We were thinking that perhaps, well, if we could find out what clan that witch belonged to, it could answer some questions.
Yeah, could be relevant. But the prevailing theory seems to be it's a kind of Templar church business, and then an outside chance that it could be this kind of carrot feud, which at least involves the witch.
It'd be interesting to see or to hear where the witch was killed. Right. So when we first heard that it was Umbardo was burned, I immediately pictured something quite public. He was killed in his house, as was the first Theog. Somebody clearly wanted them dead, but like, this is not a big show of force, at least not on the Sun Church side of things.
Although it has to be said, burning people is a very Sun Church thing to do.
Yeah, I suppose. I just mean it was in their houses, not in the middle of this square. You know?
Oh yeah. Wasn't a public burning. Yeah.
I think we should.
At this point, sorry, I also want to. I won't make Mike roll for it, but I wonder if it's worth mentioning at this point that another individual that Anton very briefly met in his time in Ravenna was first the Garmanda, who he saw emerging from a meeting with Duke Inadar. And in fact, let me. You know what? At the time, I think maybe you didn't really register, or Anton didn't really register that it may have been the first Theog Ravenna. You just saw someone in, very fancy curia robes storming out of the meeting. And of course, like now with the benefit of hindsight, thinking about this person, you realize that they looked an awful lot like first Theog robes, and that would be someone who, if any member of the Curia was going to be arguing with Duke Inadar, it'd probably be the first Theog of Ravenna, right? Like, why else would they be doing so? I guess. And her words come back to you that she, after storming out from the Duke's chambers, she stormed out flanked by 2 Templars. Obviously, that's not really going to happen now. None of them paid any attention to anyone in the antechamber you were in, other than Armanda gazing at Umbardo with a sneer before calling over her shoulder, "There is a contagious evil bred in barbarian bones, infecting the Ambrian spirit. I will pray that Prios light illuminates this for you, Duke Inadar." And then marching past you and leaving. And that memory kind of like, given everything you've learned about this Armanda as well, I thought I'd throw that at you, Mike, because it was a very little bit in a story, and I doubt you remembered it. So, but Anton remembers it.
Sure. I will relay that to the group. So
We should get outside the walls and take this back to our patron.
agreed.
You're muted, Matt.
On mute.
First one of the night. So heading outside the city as a group, presumably trying to stay a little undercover at least. Why don't we have everyone in the group roll discreet? And I will take the result as a majority. We have a yes from Anton, no from Ascarai. Well, that does not bode well.
I rolled a 1, which obviously means the whole group must have succeeded.
Double win.
Well, I mean, it does in that you were the third one they needed for that. So yeah. Okay, there we go. So you emerge from the walls of Ravenna. You're out in the kind of like this barbarian. It's not really a shanty town, but it's definitely like a more constructed and intentional and a lot nicer than that would suggest. But it's very different to the interior. And you walk gently down the slope of the hill towards the river crossing. You reach the exterior of the Weary Legs, where the caravans are still pulled up. Everyone is there. Urfons is kind of like lying back on a low wall in the sunshine, kind of sword leant up against it and sort of dozing, apparently. Fenring is kind of like talking with a couple of the wagon drivers and kind of sorting out some inventory with the quartermaster. It's all very, very calm and quiet.
Make our way straight to Disaber, I think.
Sure. So you head into the inn and walk up to where Disaber's room is. There's a couple of guards posted outside there, the ones that you think Fenring kind of trusts the most. Interestingly, there's a couple of guards he definitely seems to trust the most. And then also there is, do you remember the individual who Disaber seemed to kind of convince to join up, who had stabbed one of the other guards? He is there looking very like to attention and very kind of focused on this role he's been given in guarding Disaber. Although notably, he is the third one there. You know what I mean? Like, they definitely posted him with two other guards, just to be absolutely sure. But the guards kind of nod to you all primarily to Anton a little bit, who they see as kind of one of Disaber's a kind of like second, like one of the seconds in the caravan, I suppose. That's certainly the person she's closest to other than Fenring. And they open the door.
Disaber, you asked for some news from Ravenna, the whereabouts of Father Umbardo, and I'm afraid I have grim news. Both fronts, really.
She's kind of looking out from a window that oversees over on the crossing, where she's kind of watching another ferry load of people come in. And she kind of wrinkles her brow and turns round. We should have an image of Disaber probably, but it's lots of... Have you got an image of Disaber that you could pop up, John? Awesome. And she kind of turns around and says, "That is definitely not what I wish to hear, Father Anton. Please, all of you, take a seat."
Well, we will all sit down, I presume. Where to begin? First, we learned that Father Umbardo was burned 2 weeks ago in his home. And there also appears to be some unfortunate goings on in the Sun Church as well, with the first Diurg, Armando, also being murdered in a separate incident. It's not clear if those two things are linked, although I think that is the prevailing belief within the town.
there was also a witch burnt outside the wall.
I am saddened to hear of this. Lombardo was a good man and a wise one. Sadly, it is not outside the realm of possibility that this is reprisal. Lombardo and the First Theurg were known to not see eye to eye, and though it does not speak well of me in the eyes of Prios, I will confess I am far more grieved at the death of Lombardo than I am that of Ormonda.
Reprisal suggests you think he may be involved in her death.
No, Lombardo would not. But I believe that others could think that. Is there any other news of the town? There seem to be some kind of festivities going on.
Oh, it's the anniversary of the founding of the county. The Duke is due to make a speech at some point, but they're still building the platform, so no time soon.
Yes, of course. All right. Here is what we shall do. All of you are known throughout the north of Ambria now as problem solvers. This tumult that has befallen the Sun Church here is a problem. I would like you to find out who was responsible for the death of Father Lombardo. If along the way you discover some evidence on the murder of the First Theurg as well, and this witch who also seems to have died, all the better. You can try and work with the authorities in the city if you can. But if you cannot, I know you have your own ways. I've been involved in them. Don't do anything to exacerbate, to cause chaos, particularly if your weapons can stay free of blood. I would appreciate it, although I realize it is not always a choice.
You
I
always
cannot
bring us the tricky stuff, Lightbringer.
To be a Lightbringer is a burden, Sergeant. I would delicately present yourself to the city guard and see if you can aid them. Though I would appreciate it if for now my name didn't pass your lips.
We believed that to be your wish when we've made these initial investigations to Saber. I do have one concern, though, and that is that this town appears to not be the safe haven that I thought it would be. And given that our role here is to protect you, or certainly was on the journey here, I have to ask if you feel comfortable and safe remaining in this location.
I do. Fenring himself has a mighty arm, even without the help of the guards. And if tales I have heard of your goblin friend are true, he could hold back a battalion of assailants by himself. I have no worry. And do not worry yourselves that you leave me here. As my guards, you are my eyes and ears and arms out in the world. And sometimes those must be briefly sent away in order to secure further afield than my immediate person. This is one of those occasions.
Understood.
Not to mention Umbardo was an ally and a friend. Find out who did this to him. And should, for some reason, you make contact with the Duke, which I encourage you not to do off your own back, although perhaps an audience, I will leave the methods to you. Just, as I say, be as subtle as you can.
As you wish.
Well, it sounds like you have a busy day ahead of you.
We should begin.
Yep. Steve will kind of make a polite bow and kind of just leave the room.
Absolutely. You descend the stairs. You find Fenring kind of at the bottom of them, sharing a couple of words with the innkeeper. He turns to you as you come down and say, "You look a little grim."
It's not good in the town. Some theurges, some men of Prios have been killed. Some tribesmen as well. Pretty sober place at the minute, and not, I'd warrant, a particularly safe one.
Well, if the Lightbringer knows, I'm sure she'll make the best choice for all of us. In the meantime, I'll make sure the guards are guarding a bit more keenly.
Yeah, security on the road is one thing, but I think we've come to a place where security meets politics, which is, you don't need me to tell you, much more dangerous.
Perhaps we can buy out a few more of the other rooms. Stop anyone else taking up residence. Leave it with me. I assume you have your own duties.
Oh,
Seems
yes.
so.
Well, good luck with them.
Only the finest covert operations for sneaky Steo.
Well, subtlety's this group's specialty, right?
How do we get these jobs?
through your incredibly high persuasive and discreet stats, group wide.
Sure.
I can just picture us now, like walking through the main gates, all completely indiscreetly, loudly yelling to each other about doing a job for Desaber.
Ultimately, it's just that we're not discreet and sneaky enough to be out of the room when people are looking for someone to do a discreet and sneaky job.
That makes a lot of sense, actually.
If we were good at this, we wouldn't be here.
Yeah, because the people who are know not to be.
Yeah. Sounds about right.
So I've possibly spent too much time with Steo, but I feel like the first thing we need to do is establish a pub that we can use to make a plan and then return back to after things have started to go badly wrong.
Yeah, I think it should not be this one.
I think it should be outside the city walls, if I'm honest with you. At least outside the fancy city.
Should we see if we can go find a barbarian place?
Yes, and this means I'll finally be able to find out what happened to that witch.
I do
think we'll get a better story
worry.
from that side of the farm.
Perhaps we would be a little bit more obvious in the tribe part of the city.
I don't know, Aaron. It looks cosmopolitan enough. One of the clans focus in robes in the Sun Temple.
Really?
That
Yep.
must be the first, Anton. Is it?
Certainly a rare sight. Not something that I'm familiar with from my travels to sun churches across the land.
I mean, in general, like this is the thing. You may be slightly, your perception may be slightly out of whack for the fact that you all live in Thistlehold, but Thistlehold, you thought was the primary exception in Ambria to like how much the clan folk there mix with the Ambrians. Ravenna seems pretty similar. Like you saw a lot of Ambrians out in the barbarian part of town, and you saw a fair few barbarians within the walls. Including, as I say, one at the Sun Temple. And this is like, because we're used to it in Thistlehold, like I just want to hammer home, this is not normal for Ambria at all.
I'm just surprised what with the first Theog's attitudes, history, it just took me by surprise.
I was like, maybe that's what happened there. But too many people who didn't agree with the first Theog, and it's ended violently for a lot of people. Well, a few people so far.
So if you're looking to find a kind of home base closer to the city, there was definitely mention of finding somewhere outside the walls, and I think people kind of generally thought that was a good idea. Are you going to wander around and just try and see a place, or are you going to ask some people outside the gates for where might be good for in? I think that I don't think I mentioned it yet. I'm not sure, but it's. I do believe the barbarian part of town is literally called Barbarian Town. Yes, it is.
Amazing.
On the nose, but there we go.
It's just occurred to me, certainly, I don't know about since before Alindra joined the party, but like we've mostly been like when we found a pub, it's been a barbarian pub more often than not.
Well,
So
there's
like,
obviously the example of the Witch and Familiar in Thistlehold being your primary haunt there, right? But that was through the coincidence of you saved the place, therefore you got free board there whenever you want. Jackat's high, Ambrian.
I suppose, yeah. But there's the place by the bridge as well, and anyway.
I think I will kind of maybe, if permitted, we'll head towards the some of the more clans folky areas, and in probably quite halting carrot, I will ask, like a tourist would, if there is a pub nearby.
Sure.
Probably quite to the surprise of the rest of the team, as this is the first time I've spoken.
Sure, yeah. And Tom in particular might be quite taken aback. You ask that, and you're met with a little bit of blinking, and one of the barbarians in quite a heavily Vajvod accented voice in Ambrian says, I appreciate it, friend, but Vajvod, not Karahar.
My apologies.
Speak well, though. In?
Please.
In. Barbarity. Road there. Turn right.
Thank you.
They like Ambrians there. He looks a little bit amused. Not in a cruel way, just like a little bit amused by this whole thing.
Steo is making a fast pace ahead to avoid having to make any kind of contact with the rest of the group.
It's a fair guess. You're probably exactly between Carrot and Vajvod lands, but got it wrong.
Are either of them tribes that are color-coded?
Vajvod are, but not like universally so.
Okay.
They're not like wearing a uniform, you know what I mean? It's just if you see a barbarian wearing a lot of blue and purple, or with blue and purple accoutrement, they're often Vajrod. Karahar, like, I don't want to have all the different clans do something like that, because that feels weird, but I feel like the Zarek do it with they have like the blue and the white and the orange, right? And like, I feel like the Vajrod are mentioned in the book as wearing blue and purple. So
is it right that the carrots are a bit more like less integrated into Ambrian society? Like, would we expect
100%,
less carrots
100%.
around?
Yes, there are definitely some people who you see with like wearing like carrots, symbols and stuff like that. The carrot are noted for two things. One, they've been highly resistant to kind of Ambrian integration, often to the point of violence. There's actually three things. The second thing is they are a clan who frequently consider certain areas to be kind of taboo and off limits to both themselves and others, and they will enforce this quite violently. You actually met a group attempting to do that at Cylindra's Hope. And the third is that the Karahar, more so perhaps than any other clan that you're aware of, are less really a coherent clan and more like a common cultural group. So the carrot kind of infight along a lot amongst themselves as well, because they're more a disparate culture than they are like a coherent and united or somewhat united clan in the way a lot of the other clans are.
Hey, can I just sense check something? When we
Sure.
use the terms carrots and Karahar, are we talking about...
It is Clan Karahar. A member of the Karahar clan is called a carrot.
Right.
And I know it sounds a bit like carrot, but I'm trying to pronounce it very precisely, because otherwise it sounds silly. Karit.
Well,
sorry, in the same way that a member of Clan Odava is an Odav.
That makes sense. I just wanted to check.
Yep, it's all good. Mike.
While we're also asking you questions, can I just check on what time of day it is? Because I think that we should attend the speech tonight, and I don't want to miss that by getting drunk.
Well, when you met up outside after your evidence gathering, it was about 9. It's probably about 9:40, 30 or 40. Like, very little time has passed at all. Walking to the Weary Legs is nothing.
Okay.
So not long after, you're still early morning. I take it we're following Steo and his kind of embarrassed sort of tourist abroad moment.
At some point of the walk of shame, I'm just going to kind of pat him on the shoulder and go, "Good try, though."
You preparing for a return to Cylindra's Hope, Steo?
Nice.
Didn't even know there were. I just.
So, where you find yourselves, let's have that map back up, please, John, just so we can place. Just so we can place ourselves. So you see the area outside the gate there, and if you can indicate with it a little bit, John, that would be good. Yeah, that's the one. So if you go left to there, and you see a kind of like road kind of going to the left and then curving up to the right if you were walking down it, which doesn't help. No, further on than that, the longer one. There we go. That open area there that you reach at the top of there, that is where you're heading. And there's two things in this open area. And this open area has a lot of what every open area has a bunch of today, which is little stages and stalls and various things for the festivities. As you enter that area, walking into it from kind of below from the city gates, to your left are what looks like some city watch offices, which is probably quite unusual in like what is essentially like an appendage to the town. And opposite it is a very large, kind of rambunctious but pleasantly so inn. It has a sign over it, which in multiple languages, including all of which can be read by Anton. They're all different clan languages, and in Ambrian says barbarity.
This looks like the place.
God, you can take us out of Thistlehold, but we'll still find it again, can't we? Come on.
Well, once you head inside, after the you may indeed have got a slightly kind of inaccurate impression of it from the outside. As I say, on the outside was quite rambunctious. There's people drinking and laughing. As soon as you go inside, it quiets down a lot and has an air of very pleasant, quiet conviviality. There are two people very much dressed in an Ambrian style behind the bar, and there's kind of definitely a kind of motley crew of what look like regulars, or like talking and occasionally raising their voices a little to like yell at each other across the bar, but mostly it's very calm and pleasant. There are a few individuals playing various instruments on a low stage, and generally it has an extremely friendly and welcoming feel, and one which kind of seems like definitely a happier tone than it's been in the rest of the town. But there are people here who are, at least partly drunk, so perhaps that's to be expected.
And did you say it quieted down when we walked in?
It didn't quiet down. It was quiet compared to outside. Outside,
Right.
people are a little bit more rowdy. In here, there's a very kind of like calm, pleasant, convivial feel.
It's basically like brunch time, though, right? I don't.
Yeah,
think
exactly.
Brunch is a thing in Ambria, but like as a time of
You
day,
know what though? It has that vibe to it. Absolutely.
yeah.
The building is built in definitely a more Ambrian than barbarian style, and like I say, the two people behind the bar seem to be Ambrians. But most of the guests here are clan folk.
Okay, so I guess I will offer to buy a round of whatever kind of drinks are suitable to drink at this time of the morning. Some light breakfast ales.
Yeah, small ale.
Literally, Chris took it out of my mouth. Small beer, yes, would be the thing. It's just diluted beer.
Sure. So yeah, we'll get some small beers, and like, assuming that nobody disagrees, like try and sit somewhere where we can be within earshot of other conversations, or that we can kind of quite easily like get talking with other people. Okay, I assume that at this point we're kind of, doing investigations as much as kind of huddling among ourselves and coming up with a plan. This is Alindra's assumption anyway.
I will quietly request a half, because Aaron is aware he's already had 2 drinks this morning, and it's like 9:30 in the morning.
$100 half a pint. Right.
So yeah, like I don't know. Are there people about that look like they might be kind of open to us kind of coming and joining them, or kind of striking up a conversation at the bar? Or
yeah, people seem very friendly, and they're just kind of chatting to each other. A few people kind of noted when you came in and looked at you with quite friendly curiosity. A man kind of near the bar who sat with what looked like maybe two, bearing a very strong family resemblance to 3 younger women, probably his daughters, sat around with him, and he kind of gave you a cheery little raise of his tankard. Unusually seems to be because a lot of clan folk drink. I think they drink a drink called Velum, which is like, I assume, a kind of mead, but or like a drink in that like a honey / nut based drink rather than a grain based one. but he is drinking a large tank of what seems to be the house like brewed special, which is also what you've got, which is a drink called Duke's Relief. Yeah, there's lots of friendly looking people around. Yeah. Are we laughing at Duke's Relief?
I'm laughing at the look on Mike's face at that.
Yeah, it's unclear what kind of relief it is.
Yeah, I'm not going there. Yeah, so like, I don't know. Find someone to speak to, like, see how they feel about the festivities. Like, it's kind of different. I don't want to go straight in with like, tell us about the murder. So like,
sure.
Steo probably has unbruised his ego a little bit and is going to try and look around for someone whose language he can speak. If there's anyone obvious in the kind of,
I mean, you can speak Vashvod. You just spoke carrot to a Vashvod.
Yeah, I think I'll give it a go. The friendly guy who saluted us on the way in, I think I'll go and attempt to strike up what will initially be very basic tourist conversation. But
well, this gentleman is definitely of Clan Vashvod because his presumably daughters are wearing blue and purple dyed kind of sort of, they look kind of like sundresses, of like linen sundresses that like are in a very Vashvod style. So
yeah, I'll go up and hello, morning, good.
To avoid us going through this pigeon routine, let's just assume that we're both completely proficient. But noted, yeah, your speech will be a little rough around the edges at this stage. Morning, friends. Are you traveling to the city?
We just arrived across the river this morning.
Then welcome. You have picked, if not a good month, then a good day to be in Ravenna. The Duke will give his speech, and that seems to make you and your countrymen very happy. And I will listen too, for he often has good things to say.
The town seems to be in ill spirits. We've just come from a quick walk around.
Unfortunate happenings. Murders. And Ravenna, it has killings. Now and then. Every town does. But not like this. Your high priest, your town huldra. I do not know your terms. She is dead. One of her priests is dead. One of our witches is dead, though he had not been here long.
Not a good welcome for him. From whence did the witch arrive?
Oh, he is of Karahar. Was of Karahar. He and his sister came here. Oh, I don't know. Not long ago. Maybe a year, 2 years. I do not know. They're from the northern part of the town. They're home now. Nearly burnt down. She's staying with neighbors, I think. Terrible.
Terrible indeed. There was no enmity. It seems strange that two servants of Prios and one of the northern ways should clash like that.
With There is no enmity lost between the church and the witches. But, and if tales are true, none lost between one churchman and another now.
That much is true.
You should watch your back. Maybe the one you're with has a knife on him.
I've seen that one with a knife. I've nothing to worry about.
He gives a big laugh at this and kind of claps you. Are you wearing your plate armor?
I probably am.
I guess you were
I'm in
guarding,
guard
right? So yeah, he
Yeah.
claps you on like the plate armor and like with an impressive tap at like the, a kind of like a craftsman examining the thickness of it, and sort of like nods at the spear you've got strapped to your back as if like, yeah, you have nothing, big strong man have nothing to worry from a priest, sort of gesture. His daughter, well, at least one of his daughter, kind of rolls her eyes at her father, slightly embarrassing himself, but with his tipsiness at this time in the morning. But
That's fine.
they're kind of talking amongst themselves.
Yeah, after some more minimum viable pleasantries, I will politely detach and come back to the group and kind of relay the bits and pieces.
Yeah, he wishes you a good day, and yeah, very pleasant chap.
So they were carrot then.
Okay. Sounds like there's a story here. Bit around the carrots and Armando.
I don't know.
I don't know if it's the story that explains all of this, but there is a story.
Yeah. What do you reckon, Ascry? I don't think the carrots this far out from their own land.
Do we know exactly what the order of these killings was?
Yes. From piecing stuff together, and these are just rough timings, I believe it is that that it was 2 weeks ago, and let me double check that I'm getting this right, because I do have a timeline. 2 weeks ago is when First Theurg Armanda died. 6 days ago is when Father Umbardo died, and the witch died after that. And I believe someone said a few days ago. Well, obviously, that's a fairly loose term.
Okay.
And
I mean, it.
the Theo, the first one, wasn't burnt. Is that right?
Yeah, I think it's been clear now that she wasn't burned. Yeah, but she died. But literally, all three of the people died in their home. So, but yeah, from your understanding, Armanda was not burned.
So the first
And
day was killed.
Just to head off stuff at the past, sorry, you may be coming to the end of what you can pick up from talking to random people. Sam, carry on.
The first year died, and it feels like, I mean, initial suspicion has to be that people in the church believe that this was in some way due to kind of clansfolk influence, maybe directly, maybe they think this witch was involved, or, and they've taken revenge on the people they see as sympathetic to that or involved with that side of things. I mean, there's a motive there if this first Theurg has been kind of, cleansing the Karahar. So, I mean, it makes sense. Whether that is true or not, it's worrying that these people are being just killed in their homes. But that's the obvious answer. I guess if I had to say the way forward is maybe to talk to their sister. We can find her relatively easily, go to a burnt down house and look for the neighbors.
That's what I was going to suggest. It's the least interesting murder, but it's the one we can get to the easiest. I think the most important murder is the first one.
If they're connected, that's where the story begins, right? And everything can follow from that.
Yeah, I also have a funny feeling that all the subsequent reprisal killings were based on assumptions of who did the first killing. That's a very Ambrian thing to do, isn't it?
That's the easiest story to tell right now, for sure.
I think maybe after we speak to the sister, trying to speak to the captain that guard mentioned.
Yeah.
Perhaps
That
sooner in the day.
aligns with our.
I was going to say perhaps sooner rather than later. I imagine she's going to be quite busy today.
What's our explanation for why we're poking around in this?
Well,
We don't know anyone. We don't really have a reason to be here.
You
we
had
want to give away.
met Father Lombardo before.
I had, but that's. So are we saying that we're all here because we were going to speak with Father Lombardo about a private matter, and
I think you might be our reason.
Okay.
I was going to say we can upgrade from a private matter to a church matter, Anton. That keeps most people quiet.
Yes, until we have to give that explanation to the church. Which we inevitably
for some
will
values of useful.
Okay, but the church is in a state where it seems entirely plausible to me that Thistlehold or Temple Wall or wherever may have sent somebody to come and investigate rumors and stories, and what is the local church to say about that?
This is true, but I do not wish to draw any repercussions on myself when we do return to Thistlehold in the future. I don't want that to follow me around. But
I feel like I should also mention that at least to some of you it may occur that the moment you start saying it's church business brings you one step closer towards linking the Lightbringer into it. I don't think that's a 1-on-1, but I
mean, we could simply say that we were here and we heard about the murders and we have assisted City Guard in similar matters before. We are, after all, the heroes of the sinkhole and various other murder-adjacent issues.
I hope that is a title which does not carry much weight in this place.
Sounds a bit impressive, though, doesn't it?
That is definitely the most Arendar thing that Arendar has ever said. We could just say that we're good Samaritans and we want to help. Surely they'll see nothing suspicious in that.
Why do we want to know? Because we're heroes, of course.
I think we could say we're here for the festivities. Anton was hoping to meet his friend Father Lombardo and has just learned of his death.
Yeah, it doesn't.
We're interested to find out what's happened.
I don't think it has to be anything complicated.
Okay. In the meantime, something I should have asked for when the conversation ended. Steo, can you give me a discreet roll, but discreet roll at quite high, +3, please, because you were at least speaking in Vashvod, which not everyone here will speak.
He passes, Steo!
Great. Fantastic. Okay. So what we're doing first, and are we splitting the party at all? And there was talk of going to find this captain who might be involved.
I think that's the order. I think I'd be... The thing is, I want to do both, so I'd rather not split the party.
Okay, well, if we can get your friend to point us in the direction of the house that was burned and possibly the sister, maybe that's closer. We cover that up.
I can find it. It's in the north. It's the burnt down one.
Okay, so we do that, and then we head into the city proper and see if we can find Captain Yalna.
Yeah.
Okay.
I drink up my small beer.
Okay. So
I drink up my large beer.
Your large small beer?
It's just medium size then.
That's just beer. So you walk out of Barbarity, and Steo, you seem to think you can find a burned building in the north part of Barbarian Town, and you know what? Maybe you can. Why don't you give me a cunning roll, please? And you know what? It does stick out a bit, so take a +1 to it.
11s are better to not make a mess of this. Oh my goodness, Ascarai, save us.
No, you're the one looking for it. So yeah, you head to the north part of Barbarian Town. You find like along the way you see a number of different things. You see kind of other inns. You see quite a lot of ruins scattered around Barbarian Town, some of which seem to have been kind of like built on to form parts of various buildings, and others seem to be kind of avoided a little bit, and kind of like houses and structures are built away from them. Some of them look like older, maybe clan buildings, and some of them do have a bit of a Symbaric cast to them. Ravenna isn't hugely far from the border with Davokar, so who knows? But either way, you find yourself in the north part of Barbarian Town. You've kind of moved past the areas where people are gathering for the festival, so it's definitely a bit quieter around here, and you're getting a few more kind of odd glances shot your way at what a group of Ambrians are doing. Maybe this far from the walls, it's not aggressive, and you don't feel intimidated. It's just a little more curious, perhaps. You've definitely haven't seen any other Ambrians for a few minutes. You also resolutely cannot find a burned out building.
Oh, I thought this was going to be straightforward.
You could ask somebody. Seem to have picked up a lot of the local languages.
Could do. Do you want to take the lead here, actually, Ascarai or Anton? I just feel like maybe a less imposing presence might do well now we're off the main track.
I would definitely flag. I've kind of let Ascarai get away without buying first level in Lawmaster for a few clan languages because of his origins. I would say it'd be definitely stretching it to say that he can speak Carrot or Vajvod.
Yeah.
I think we've kind of informally said, obviously you can speak Kadinja, but I think we've informally said you can speak Zarek and Odav because that's kind of the area of the forest you're familiar with.
Yeah.
This is a bit too far east for you. So if you want someone who can definitely speak the languages, that's going to be Anton.
I'm happy to try. Although my dress may put up people's defenses against giving me the information that we need.
It's your rose versus my spear, Father.
So, yeah, I guess I'll just try to find someone who's not looking too busy, and yeah.
Sure. There's like a Cooper over on one side of the road. She's just finished constructing a barrel, and it's kind of like sort of stretching out in the sun a little bit, and kind of watches as you approach.
A moment of your time, if I may.
As long as you're not preaching to me, priest.
I am not. I just seek a small amount of information. I heard of a fire and a murder, I suppose, that happened recently in these parts.
You're speaking of Yama.
Yama.
He was killed. His sister escaped. What do you want? What business is it of yours?
Well, it's to do with I suppose my own conscience for it is, part of my reason for being in this town, to understand a little bit more about what has happened, and I just seek the location of Yama's home. That is all I wish.
Could you give me a persuasive roll, please, Anton?
That's a bad one. That's an 18, and I do not make it.
I will tell you where Yama made his home on 2 conditions. 1, if you upset his sister, I'll have someone find you and thump you to the ground myself. And 2nd, a shilling. Priests are good for shillings.
That is a fair trade in my eyes, and there is no intention to upset anyone. I know how, I know how upsetting this could be for anyone connected to Yama. I will gladly pass over a shilling.
She takes it and kind of like tests it between her teeth and then gives you the directions. It sounds like it's only a couple of streets away.
Thank you for your time and your information.
She nods and kneels down to start hammering nails into another flexed piece of wood. Okay. I take it we're following her directions, and if you do so, you will find what looks like a relatively newly built log house in the northernmost part of Barbarian Town. It is so northern, in fact, that beyond it you can only see a couple of structures before kind of rolling grassy hills give way to a low plain to the north of Ravenna. It has been so ravaged by fire that only its framework remains. The houses around it are far enough away, kind of 10 feet or so, that they don't seem to have been taken up by the fire and are still kind of occupied by people. One of them kind of sits kind of like quiet with the door closed, and the other seems to be kind of like there's a family there. There's a woman outside kind of straining out water from cloth, maybe washing or maybe processing it in some way, and a number of children kind of running around the place, causing a mild amount of chaos.
So we've found the house.
And please, no one upset the sister, because I do not want to be thumped to the ground.
I don't want that for you either. I suppose in hindsight, it might have been wiser to ask for directions to the sister than to the house. I don't know if it's like knocking on doors now or what.
I believe the old man said that she was staying with a neighbor.
Yeah.
That can be obviously a looser meaning, but would I do that to you? You know,
She should be nearby.
I'm thinking that it might be less like intrusive and confrontational if people around see us like quite obviously kind of looking at the ruins, rather than like proactively go bang on doors. Like see if we can spot somebody watching us and maybe like start a conversation that way.
There may be something they'll find in the ruins.
Oh yeah, we can actually look.
Yeah, you can actually investigate like detectives. Oh, god damn it, cat! No, sorry. troublemaker. I forgot to do this again, but Anton, can you give me a discreet roll, but a +4, please?
Anton makes a roll.
Anton makes a roll. Awesome. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is go look at the actual ruin, right? Ruin, the burnt out house. Okay. All right. Yeah, like I say, it is what looks like the remains of a newly built log cabin. It has been the framework is all that's really left of it, and everything inside that was anything has been burnt to the ground. Nevertheless, feel free to obviously make vigilant rolls if you like.
Can I do a vigilant roll to figure out where I put my d20?
Yes, you get a -5 to it. Quick question for Elindra, which is obviously telegraphing stuff, because we rarely ever use it, Stephen. But is Witch Sight passive or active?
It is active, but it's a good idea as a thing to try and roll for.
Absolutely.
Sorry.
Go on, John.
Go ahead. No, it's fine.
No, please go on.
I was going to say we have had instances of uncontrolled witch sight narratively before as well.
Yeah. Remind us of the mechanics, because it's so infrequent that we've used it that I feel like
it's a free action, and it's a vigilant roll modified by the discrete to see the dominant shadow of a creature, location, or object.
Okay, and you don't have to like use corruption for it or anything like that. I don't think so.
Each attempt forces the character to suffer 1 point of temporary corruption.
Well, that's not too much. Okay, well, that seems like a separate roll from the vigilant roll, from just looking around the place. And I can tell everyone that, like, who... so give me a thumbs up if you succeeded the vigilant roll, sorry. Okay, you two are dead sure there's nothing here. The others, well, maybe there's something, but you can't see anything, right? As for Elindra, give me a vigilant roll, please, for the witch sight specifically.
That's a big fat fail.
Okay.
And fun, though I feel like I'm missing out on narrative joy for that. I don't think I can quite bring myself to spend an XP to re-roll it. So.
Okay. Fair enough. Yeah, nothing strikes you.
When we get to the end of the campaign, at the final debriefing, you're going to tell us that this is the moment that we could have cracked the case.
Well, we'll never know if you don't spend it.
I guess we're going the long way around, folks.
You might also never know if you spend it, because you could fail a second roll. There we go. Yeah.
Just going to sort of speak my mind, talk to the group here, but if you were going to burn someone in their home, how would you do it? Because setting them on fire, like, would they not just run out of their home on fire? Would they be locked inside?
My dear Aunt Tom, I think of all the people in this group, you are the one who is most close to the concept of being on fire. You do it as a hobby.
That sounds weirdly like a threat, Theo.
Also quite far away from setting other people on fire and murdering them. But I take your point, Theo.
I would have thought that if you were going to try to burn somebody down in their house, and this is not a thing that I have ever done, and this was not in my training, I would think that you would set fire to the doorway, assuming there is only one exit.
It's interesting that the sister escaped, which was what we were told, which suggests that she was in the house and got out.
I would assume the most reliable way to burn someone to death in their own house is to break into their house and set them on fire. The house may be collateral, or to in some way make sure that they can't escape. If they were asleep, they usually happen at night.
Magic.
Is the fire more symbolic? Were they stabbed in their sleep and then set on fire to send a message?
Well, you'd have to
I
speak
do
to
not
the guard
know.
about that, I suppose.
I think, Anton, we might call on you again, given that counseling the recently bereaved is another one of your callings.
It's a stretch for barbarians, especially under these circumstances.
Fair.
I do not feel that we have enough reason to be here and have enough answers to give or help to offer to make that introduction at this moment in time.
I agree in principle, but time is tight. We have an important charge.
While we're standing in these kind of charred ruins, Matt, I'm kind of looking around and seeing if anybody on the kind of surrounding streets has like noticed that there's a bunch of people picking through the burned house.
Yeah, I mean, people are everyone who passes or is nearby is kind of curious or looking over at you. The woman next door, who is kind of like thrashing clothing dry against like a threshing post, is watching you like an absolute hawk, and nakedly so.
Does she, limited knowledge of these kind of clans, does she look Vashvod or anything in particular, any clan in particular?
I mean, you know what? Give me a cunning roll.
Okie dokie.
And you can take a +2 because you've
passed that one.
Got some idea. If you had to get if you had to guess about whether this woman is specifically Carrot or Vajvod, you'd say Carrot because you can't see any of the Vajvod colors.
Not obviously Vajvod. Okay.
Yeah. But that'd be your guess.
I guess I'm gonna nudge Steo and say, being watched, I think this is the person to speak to. Just say we're trying to help investigate the murder. Ask if they know where the sister is.
Yeah, I think I'll do that. I think in the spirit of the commitment to the bit, however, I think I will choose the wrong language and try and introduce myself to her in Vajvod.
It's not a bit. You don't have to do that just to make yourself embarrassing.
Okay. If I've seen Carrot before, so I probably twig it correctly, and I will go.
Sure.
Excuse me. Do you know? We're trying to assist with the investigation. Do you know where the sister is? We'd very much like to speak to her.
The woman, who's quite short and stout, kind of stands up and puts her hands on her hips in quite an aggressive pose and says, "And who are you to be asking these questions? You're not city guard. You don't look like city guard."
My colleague here was good friends with one of the others who were murdered. We are travelers, but we'd rather know what happened to him, and as a result, what happened to insert name I've forgotten here.
Yarma is the name you're looking
Yarma.
for if you're referring to the witch. One of you was friends with the other one, the priest?
I'll kind of nod over to the one in robes.
Priest's friend with priests.
A rarity in this day and age, but we're just trying to stop any more conflict.
Could you give me a persuasive test, please? But you can take a +3 to it. Actually, you can take a +4 to it because you're speaking her language.
Okay, 8, 9, 10, 11, -1 because of elderly, 10.
Is that a fail?
That is a fail because
Okay,
I failed my
Anton.
elderly roll.
And Tom, I'm going to give you a chance to dip in and say something about this because you're the only one over here who can understand this language.
Sure. Okay. I guess. I mean, are you happy for me to just have a roll, or do you want me to say something like to try and persuade her?
I mean, say something,
we-
and I might give you bonuses or
Okay.
malices on the roll based on that.
Okay. Okay. I think what my friend here is trying to say is that we do not come here seeking to antagonize anyone or worsen this situation. But we have seen situations like this before, and we know that people often wait a long time for the answers that they seek. And if you are looking for answers about what happened to Yama, then maybe we can help. I can make no promises, but maybe we can help. And we just have simple questions, and that is all. And we will leave you be if you do not wish to answer them.
She kind of looks at you and kind of snorts and says, "You speak carrot better than him." She kind of glances over you all, and her eyes seem to linger a little bit on Ascarai and kind of like his slightly, perhaps more clanfolk-esque dress. Certainly the wooden mask he wears is very clanfolk in nature. Well, the guard don't seem to give a shit. They haven't even asked any questions.
This
I
is
don't know
often the way.
I don't know if they've even been out here. One of you can go in and talk to Yara, but they leave their weapons out here.
That is more than fair. Can I ask you something just before?
Speak.
You said that the city guard haven't been out here, but it appears that there are city guard in Barbarian Town.
I know. And they look into other murders. Killings happen. I've even seen them arrest Ambrians for killing barbarians. But Yama, no one cares. They just talk about the high priest and the other priest. He was a good man. And they burned him. I am too angry. One of you go in.
I think this falls to you, Anton.
Okay. I will go and speak to did you say Yana?
Yara.
Yara. It's Yara and Yana?
Yarmar was the brother. That's Yarmar, and
Yeah.
Yara Yara is the sister.
Okay, thank you.
She did also ask you to leave your weapons outside.
Yeah. I will de-weapon myself before going in.
Okay, passing it to Steo, presumably.
Steo, I guess.
Nearest to him. Steo takes your flail, and before you go in, the woman kind of reaches over and grabs you by the elbow momentarily and says, "Be quiet and be patient. She is wounded." She lets go of your elbow, and you go into the building, the kind of home, to talk to Yara. And I think we will leave the session there, folks. Reached quite a intense and darker point in this investigation so far. So thank you, everyone, for watching. Thank you for participating, to my lovely players. We'll have comments and questions in a minute. But first, I'll do the usual blurb stuff. Check below the video. There's a bunch of links to YouTube and to Twitch. You're watching on one of those sites. And that's more accurate now than it ever has been. Because obviously we stream this on YouTube as well as Twitch. And we hope you enjoyed that if you watched it there. There are also links down below to our Discord, our Patreon, our social media, our merch page, all that. The typical stuff you might imagine. We've run a quite busy schedule. Mondays are currently alternating between Warhammer Fantasy and We Deal in Lead. Wednesdays is Symbaroum. Thursdays is, at the moment, Wicked Ones, although that is coming to an end, at least as far as the streamed Wicked Ones is concerned tomorrow. It will probably return in some recorded format. We are picking up Thursdays next week with the start of fortnightly Yellow King, which is a lovely kind of reality-bending, spooky, cosmic horror thing. Think it's very Call of Cthulhu, but perhaps even weirder and with a kind of alt history bent to it. Check that out. We're quite excited about running it, and it is actually a pretty colossal player group. So let's see how we handle that, because 6 or 7 people are going to be playing it. We also run one-shots every month or so. The next one of which is on Sunday, June the 9th, which will be Cloud Empress. That's a lovely little system. Come watch us play that. I think that's all the promo nonsense. Yeah, probably. Sounds about right. Okay, John, sling some stuff up on the screen for us. Mike, traveling all that way only to get 2 pints of fucking Tuborg at the end of it. Beer joke, I'm guessing. I'm sure Mike can explain it. I'm assuming Tuborg is a shit beer.
Well, you said like festival beer.
Yeah. All right, it's a festival. Yeah,
it's a beer joke
as you well know, Mike. I won't know that at all. So you know.
Unsurprisingly, I sometimes type things that aren't specifically aimed to just please you, Matt.
What? This doesn't sound right.
What are you going to say, Chris?
It's a beer joke insofar as Tuborg is beer, which is pretty tenuous.
And is a joke, presumably. As
is a joke of a beer. It is quite multifaceted, actually, now I analyze it. But
giving Mike a bit too much credit there. Dungeoneering VTT. All NPCs the group talks to should be holding cats while the cat is around. Yeah, I should have worked it in. But then you end up with a sequence, because he tends to be held for a long period of time. You'd end up with a sequence where like 3 NPCs in a row were all holding the same black cat, which I feel like if I introduce that as a concept, the group would immediately go, well, this is part of the plot.
This cat's been burning down houses.
Yeah, exactly.
I just get some text over the start of the episode saying directed by David Lynch and just pass it off.
Yeah, sure. I should make all the NPCs remark on how good the coffee is. And no, Twin Peaks gag. Never mind. Next. Steve, hoping this is an investigative mystery about spontaneous human combustion. Imagine if it was. Imagine if at the end. Oh shit! I guess just Prius wanted them dead. I guess.
I mean, it is actually technically spontaneous human combustion. It just had someone else involved.
Is that spontaneous then?
Yeah, you might need to
It's
look up
fairly spontaneous.
spontaneous.
I mean, like it's premeditated human
It's
combustion
it's
as well.
spontaneous human combustion if the person setting them on fire did it really off the cuff. I guess it's spontaneous in a different way.
I have to bend a currently popular saying. If I had a nickel for every time I was in a roleplay story that involves spontaneous human combustion, this year alone, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird it happened twice.
I love 2 things about that. First, I love that I didn't even know that another story on the channel had spontaneous human combustion in it. And secondly, I love that you've termed "if I had a nickel then X" as a really current turn of phrase, rather than something which immediately makes me think of some turn of the century, like a fast-talking American in a derby hat.
The full part of the "if I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird it happened twice," is
right. Okay.
one of those current internet. I think it's
Fair.
from Phineas and
The-
Ferb.
That the kids are into.
Yes.
Phineas and Ferb again, are very up to date, very.
Shut up! It's for people younger than me. Therefore, it is for the youth.
It's okay.
When you
I've just started using this bit at the end to just kind of passive aggressively have to dig at all my players. I hope everyone's enjoying it.
It's my favourite bit.
You were going to say something, Mike? Sorry.
I was just going to say, when John said, like, to borrow the phrase of the age, whatever he said, I thought it was going to end in "you can't even spontaneously human combust these days because of
These
woke."
days. Because of woke. These days, you'll be arrested if you set yourself on fire. Oh, that's too close to the bone.
No.
Let's move on. To my defense, I didn't realize what I was saying until I said it. Chicken in the cage. Isn't it always fun when the GM asks you for a roll, you fail it, and nothing happens? Increasingly happens with this group, I find. I particularly like doing investigative rolls and then saying, yes, and now you're certain there's nothing here. And I find that's actually, like, I'm kind of talking about it in a jokey way, but I think that is the right way to do it. Because otherwise, like, if you go, oh, we're going to search for something, and I'm like, yeah, there's nothing here.
Yeah.
Then
There
like,
is-
it kind of confer, it's like, it should be the same process whether there is or not.
Yeah, because it would mean if we fail a roll, then we get the downside of not being sure. Like,
Yeah,
whereas
exactly.
if you just tell us, and
if I ask you
there's
to
no
make a
failure.
roll, then you know there's something there then. And then you know if you fail it, oh, well, we'll keep looking, or, whatever. I think it's like both ways. You should do it.
This is a good vote in the camp for the GM should make these rolls and only tell us the outcomes.
There's definitely something to be said for that approach. Definitely something to be said. Yeah. It's like Mike walked out and then it kind of looked like he walked out and then somehow remotely removed himself from it. That's not what happened.
Skills.
Steve, don't do anything to exacerbate the situation. Smash cuts a whole town on fire. Yeah. That sounds accurate.
It's literally like, oh, look, we've been parachuted into another powder keg. I'm sure we're going to resolve this with the utmost discretion and efficiency.
Theo
we
just
always
stood
do.
by the castle walls, daubing "Stop hiring me for sneaky shit" in the blood of some passerby on it.
I think Mash got to us leading a clansfolk rebellion against Ravenna might be close, depending on how it goes.
Next. 42, welcome. The HR department has to have a talk with the HR department on their continual failure to hire sneaky and discreet mercenaries. Yeah. Yeah. One of you's kind of sneaky, but unfortunately, the rest of you filthy
so much.
humans keep messing up his style.
This absolutely feels like a job for black cloaks, traditionally. But,
Yeah, sure. Although, they might be the ones more likely to be doing the burning.
That's true.
Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
true.
we might be tracking down black cloaks who have been murdering a bunch of people.
Like, I guess Disaber's just working with what she's got, and what she's got is the heroes of the sinkhole.
Yeah, given Disaber's proclivities regarding the church, you imagine she probably doesn't have many black cloaks at her beck and call.
That's fair.
You imagine she could do, but they don't seem to be what she's going for. Next. Chicken in the Cage. I'm very glad you wrote this because we saw your comment and we, in fact, I posted it backstage in our Discord and everyone was very happy about it. So yes, let's read this out. Great session, guys. Very excited about this new chapter. Just wanted to let you know I included your characters as NPCs in my own campaign, but after the Tomb of Dying Dreams, they followed Steo's advice and settled in Thistlehold, and Steo rose steadily in rank to succeed Marvello as captain of the City Watch. Yeah, we were delighted to read this, and such a cool idea, and yeah, made us very happy indeed. The notion of someone else using like our characters as NPCs is really cool. So thank you very much for that. You definitely put a smile on our face. Although I believe Chris's exact words were great. Now he's even more of a cop. So, but yeah, it's super cool. It's a super cool thing to hear.
I did like how about 5 minutes ago, Steo just like approached a random person, asked them a question, and their first reaction was, "What are you, a cop?" Basically.
Well, she said you don't look like a cop, is what she said. Which you don't, because the city guard would wear uniforms.
What's Karahar for come back with a warrant?
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Have we got anything else?
It's a few other things. Let's go for
it. Steve, kind of want to see a spin-off series following the adventures of the sneakier, more professional group that avoids all this drama.
Who would you find to play in that series, though? Because we've just got us.
I don't know anyone professional, so...
By the time we get to the end of this Behemoth, we're all going to be thoroughly burnt out.
Those are the characters.
Both!
And burnt out emotionally or literally on fire.
Both!
Once we've got to the end of the campaign, we're going to go back to the start of it and speed run it.
Yeah, but we get to keep all our skills from the previous run.
It's like we go to the prologue,
new game plus,
pickpocket Keller, and then glitch through the topography. Then we can fast travel like straight to the final dungeon and defeat the god of Symbar himself.
There is also
meanwhile I'm doing memory injections in the pub.
Yeah,
I'll just trigger the flipping credits.
Next. Oh, Mike is back, by the way. I don't know how long he's been back. There he is. Chicken in the Cage again. As a priest, I assume you're the most familiar person with burning people to death in their own house. I mean, historically.
Yeah. I think Steo was. I think literally, I was kind of like Steo is going to be dancing around the fact that this is the kind of thing priests do when they're punishing people.
Yeah. Yeah, to a certain degree. Although, if you want to read some history about particularly the European habit of who got burnt and who didn't get burnt, it was oftentimes as much at the initiation of the noble class as it was the clergy, which just goes to prove, folks, if there's any ever lesson you should take from the Throne of Thorns or this channel in general, it is that there is no war but the class war. Next comment, please, John.
It's a bit undermined by being the goodie.
Undermined by my resoundingly political statement. Cool. Awesome. Thank you, folks. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for watching. Thank you for playing. Thank you for experiencing. Yes. We'll be back next week with more Symbaroum, Wicked Ones tomorrow, and then also next week. So you'll have a double whammy of me because I'll be doing Symbaroum on Wednesday and the Yellow King on Thursday. Hope to see you for that as well. In the meantime, take care, stay safe, and we will see you soon. Goodbye.